The alarm bells had been quiet for 3 months on Station Omega 7. Admiral Jake Morrison liked it that way. He sat in his command chair, watching the stars through the massive viewing window. The coffee in his cup had gone cold hours ago, but he kept holding it anyway. It gave his hand something to do. "Sir, we have something strange on the sensors," Lieutenant Amy Carter called from her station. Her voice carried that tone that meant trouble was coming. Jake turned his chair toward the young woman. Amy had been with his crew for 2 years now. She was smart, careful, and never called something strange unless it really was. "What kind of strange, Carter?" Amy's fingers moved across her control panel. The main screen lit up with sensor data. Lines of numbers scrolled past faster than most people could read them. "There's a ship coming in from the outer rim." "But sir, it's not like anything in our database." Commander Lisa Brooks walked over from her station. Lisa had been Jake's second, in command for 5 years. She was tough, smart, and never panicked. If Lisa was interested, then this was worth paying attention to. "Show me," Jake said. He set his coffee cup down and stood up. The main screen changed to show a long-range sensor image. There was a dot moving among the stars. It looked small, but Jake knew that meant nothing. Things in space were always bigger than they looked. "Computer, enhance the image," Lisa ordered. The dot grew larger. It became a shape. The shape became a ship, but it was unlike any ship Jake had ever seen. It was sleek and dark, like a knife cutting through space. No lights blinked on its hull. No energy signatures showed where its engines should be. "How big is it?" Jake asked. "About 300 meters long, sir," Amy replied. "But that's where things get weird. Look at these energy readings." Numbers appeared on the screen. Jake stared at them. After 20 years in space, he thought he had seen everything. These numbers made no sense at all. "The energy output is off the charts," Amy continued. "But we can't tell what kind of energy." "It is. It's not fusion. It's not antimatter. It's not anything we know about." "Maybe their sensors are broken," suggested Ensign Rick Davis from the communications station. Rick was new to the crew, still learning how things worked out here. "Run a full diagnostic on all sensor arrays," Jake ordered. "I want to be sure we're seeing this right." The diagnostic took 10 minutes. All systems checked out perfectly. The mysterious ship was real, and it was heading straight for the heart of Empire space. "Sir," Lisa said quietly, "if that thing is putting out that much energy, why can't we see any engines? Where are the heat signatures? Where's the radiation?" Jake had been wondering the same thing. Every ship he knew about left traces as it moved through space. Hot engine exhaust, radiation from power cores, electromagnetic signatures from the computers and life support systems. This ship showed none of that. "Maybe it's a ghost ship," Rick suggested. "You know, one of those old stories about ships that were lost and then came back." "Ghosts don't show up on sensors, Ensign," Lisa replied. But her voice wasn't as confident as usual. "Carter, what's the ship's heading?" Jake asked. Amy checked her instruments. "It's moving directly toward the Zarian system, sir. At its current speed, it will reach the outer planets in about 6 hours. The Zarian system was home to over 2 billion people. It was also the location of the Empire's largest military base. In this sector, if this mysterious ship was hostile, it was heading for the worst possible place. Have we tried to contact it?" Jake asked. "Yes, sir," Rick replied. "I've been sending standard greeting messages for the past hour. No response. I've tried all the common languages. Even some of the old Earth languages that nobody uses anymore." Jake walked to the viewing window. The ship was too far away to see with the naked eye, but he looked anyway. In his 20 years of service, he had learned to trust his instincts. Right now, those instincts were telling him that something very bad was about to happen. "Sir?" Amy called out. "The ship just changed course," Jake spun around. "What?" "It's moving faster now, much faster. And it's not heading for Zarian anymore. It's heading for the capital system, where Emperor Zorvac lived, where the High Council made all the decisions that affected trillions of lives across the galaxy. If something happened there, the entire empire could fall into chaos. How much faster? Jake asked. Amy's hands flew over her controls. Sir, this is impossible. It's moving at speeds that should tear any ship apart. No hull can handle that kind of stress. Maybe it's not a ship, Lisa said quietly. Maybe it's something else. Jake looked at his crew. They were all good people. They had families back on Earth, lives they wanted to return to someday. But right now, they were the only ones standing between this mysterious object and the heart of the Empire. Carter, send a priority message to Fleet Command. Tell them we have an unknown vessel heading for the capital system at impossible speeds. Request immediate backup. Yes, sir, Amy replied. Her fingers moved across the communications panel. After a moment, she frowned. Sir, I can't get through. Something is blocking our long-range communications. What do you mean blocking? Jake asked. I mean the signals aren't getting through. It's like there's a wall between us and Fleet Command. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. The mysterious ship was still hours away, but somehow it was already affecting their systems. That should have been impossible. Try the emergency channels, he ordered. Amy tried for several minutes. Nothing worked. Station Omega-7 was cut off from the rest of the Empire. Sir, Lisa said, we need to make a decision. Do we try to intercept that ship, or do we evacuate the station? Jake looked at his crew again. Station Omega-7 had a crew of 300 people. They were scientists, engineers, and support staff. Most of them had never been in combat. The station itself had only light defensive weapons, but they were also the only ones who knew about the mysterious ship. If they ran, no one would be able to warn the capital system about what was coming. We stay, Jake decided. But we evacuate. All non-essential personnel to the escape pods. If this goes bad, at least some of us will survive to tell the story. Sir, Rick said, maybe we should try to communicate with it again. Maybe it's friendly. Jake wanted to believe that. But in his 20 years of service, he had learned that when something looked too good to be true, it usually was. And when something looked too dangerous to be real, it usually was that too. Keep trying, Ensign, he ordered. But be ready to cut communications if anything strange happens. Stranger than a ship that moves faster than light and doesn't show up properly on sensors? Lisa asked. Jake almost smiled. Yeah, stranger than that. The mysterious ship continued its journey toward the capital system. On Station Omega-7, Admiral Jake Morrison and his crew watched and waited. They had no idea that they were about to witness the beginning of the end of the Empire. They had no idea that the dark ship moving through space carried the power to change everything. All they knew was that something was coming, something that didn't belong in their universe. Something that would make them question everything they thought they knew about technology, about power, and about what it meant to be human. The countdown to the Empire's end had begun. General Marcus Webb had not slept in 18 hours. The coffee on his desk had gone cold, but he kept drinking it anyway. His office on the command ship Overlord was usually quiet at this time of day. Not today. The message from Station Omega-7 had finally gotten through 3 hours ago. Admiral Morrison's report made no sense. A ship that moved faster than light without leaving any trace. A vessel that could block communications across entire star systems. Marcus had read the report 5 times, and it still sounded impossible. Sir? The High Council wants to speak with you, his aide, Captain Tony Hayes, said from the doorway. Tony was a good officer, tough and smart. He had fought in the border wars and never backed down from a fight. But right now, he looked worried. Marcus stood up and straightened his uniform. The High Council did not like to be kept waiting. Put them through, the wall screen activated. 5 faces appeared, but they were not human faces. The Zorvak Empire had been ruled by aliens for over 1,000 years. Humans served them because they had no choice. The alternative was death. General Webb, the center figure, spoke. Supreme Commander Vexhai was the most powerful Zorvak in the military. His voice sounded like grinding metal. Explain this report about an unknown vessel. Marcus took a deep breath. Sir, we have confirmed that an unidentified ship is moving toward the capital system at impossible speeds. Our best estimates show it will arrive in approximately 4 hours. Impossible speeds? Another council member asked. Define impossible. The ship is moving faster than our fastest vessels, but it shows no engine signatures, no heat trails, no radiation. It's as if the laws of physics don't apply to it. The council members looked at each other. Even through the screen, Marcus could see they were disturbed by this news. The Zorvak Empire had maintained power for 1,000 years because they had the best technology. If someone else had better technology, that was a problem. What do we know about this ship's origin? Supreme Commander Vexhai asked. Nothing, sir. It appeared from the outer rim, from an area where no inhabited systems exist. We have no records of any civilization in that region. Could it be a precursor vessel? Another council member asked. Marcus felt his heart skip a beat. The precursors were the ancient race that had ruled the galaxy millions of years ago. They had disappeared, leaving behind only ruins and technology that no one could understand. If the precursors had returned, it would change everything. We don't know, sir. The ship's design doesn't match any known precursor artifacts. Then, we must assume it is hostile, Supreme Commander Vexhai declared. Prepare the fleet. I want every available ship ready for battle within the hour. Sir, how many ships should we deploy? All of them, Vexhai replied. If this unknown vessel poses a threat to the capital system, we will destroy it with overwhelming force. The screen went dark. Marcus sat down heavily in his chair, all of them. The Empire had over 3,000 ships in the capital system. It was the largest fleet ever assembled in one place. Captain Hayes, Marcus called out. Tony stepped into the office. Yes, sir? Contact Fleet Admiral Rodriguez. Tell him to prepare for full mobilization. And get me a secure line to Admiral Morrison on Station Omega 7. I want to know everything he knows about this ship. Yes, sir. Tony paused at the door. General, do you really think we need 3,000 ships to stop one vessel? Marcus looked at his aide. Tony was a good officer, but he was still young. He had never faced an enemy with unknown capabilities. I hope not, Captain. But if we're wrong, those 3,000 ships might not be enough. While Tony made the calls, Marcus walked to his window. Outside, he could see the Imperial fleet. Massive ships hung in space like steel mountains. Each one carried enough firepower to destroy a planet. Together, they were supposed to be invincible, but Marcus had read Admiral Morrison's report. This mysterious ship had already done things that should have been impossible. What if it could do other impossible things too? His computer chimed. A message from the research station at Nexus Point. Dr. Kate Phillips, the Empire's best expert on alien technology, was requesting permission to study the sensor data from the unknown ship. Marcus approved the request immediately. If anyone could figure out what they were dealing with, it was Dr. Phillips. She had spent her entire career studying the technology of extinct civilizations. Maybe she could find some clue about where this ship came from. The secure line to Station Omega 7 finally connected. Admiral Morrison's face appeared on the screen. He looked tired and worried. General Webb, Morrison said. I was hoping you'd call. We have updates on the unknown vessel. What kind of updates? It's accelerating again. And sir, it's now moving at speeds that our computers can't even calculate properly. At this rate, it will reach the capital system in less than 2 hours. 2 hours? Marcus felt his stomach drop. The fleet won't be ready for another hour. At least, there's something else, sir. The ship has been scanning us. We can feel it, but we can't detect the scanning beams. It's like it's looking right through our shields and hull. Marcus didn't like the sound of that. If the ship could scan through Imperial shields, what else could it do? Admiral, I want you to evacuate all non-essential personnel from your station. If this ship is hostile, you're directly in its path. Already done, sir? We have a skeleton crew of 50 people. Everyone else is in the escape pods, ready to launch if necessary. Good. Keep monitoring the ship and report any changes immediately. Yes, sir. General, what do you think this thing is? Marcus wished he had an answer. I don't know, Morrison. But we'll find out soon enough. The line went dead. Marcus called. Captain Hayes back into his office. Tony, what's the status on the fleet? Fleet Admiral Rodriguez reports that 2/3 of the ships are ready for combat. The rest will be ready within the hour. He's requesting permission to move the fleet to intercept the unknown vessel. Granted. And Tony, send a message to all civilian traffic in the capital system. Tell them to clear the shipping lanes and take shelter. If this turns into a battle, I don't want any innocent people caught in the crossfire. Yes, sir. As Tony. Left to carry out his orders, Marcus turned back to his window. The Imperial fleet was already beginning to move. Hundreds of ships were leaving their docking stations and forming up in battle formation. It was an impressive sight, but Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to face something beyond their understanding. The unknown ship had already demonstrated abilities that defied explanation. What if it had weapons that were equally impossible? His computer chimed again. This time it was a message from Dr. Phillips at Nexus Point. She had finished her preliminary analysis of the sensor data. Marcus read the report quickly. Then he read it again. Then he sat down and poured himself a drink, according to Dr. Phillips. The unknown ship's energy signature didn't match anything in the Imperial database. It didn't match any known technology from any civilization, living or dead. The ship's materials appeared to be composed of elements that didn't exist on the periodic table, but the most disturbing part of the report was the conclusion. Dr. Phillips believed that the ship was using some form of space-time manipulation. It wasn't just moving through space. It was changing the shape of space itself. Marcus finished his drink and stood up. If Dr. Phillips was right, then the Empire was about to face an enemy with godlike technology. 3,000 ships might not be enough. 3 million ships might not be enough, but they were all he had. And somewhere in the darkness of space, a mysterious ship was racing toward the heart of the Empire. In less than 2 hours, they would find out what it wanted. Marcus hoped they would all survive long enough to learn the answer. Captain Tony Hayes stood on the bridge of the Imperial Dreadnought Sovereign and watched the most powerful fleet in the galaxy take position around a single small ship. 50 massive war vessels formed a perfect circle in space. Each ship could destroy a moon. Together, they had enough firepower to crack a planet in half, but the ship in the center of their formation just sat there, silent, dark, waiting. Sir, all ships report ready for battle, Lieutenant Commander Ben Rodriguez said from his tactical station. Ben had been with Tony for 3 years. He was steady under pressure and never made mistakes when it mattered. Good, Tony replied. Any word from the unknown vessel? Nothing, sir. It's been quiet for the past hour. Ever since it stopped moving, Tony studied the main screen. The mysterious ship was smaller than any of the Imperial vessels, but it didn't look weak. It looked like a blade hanging in space, sharp and deadly. There were no lights on its hull, no signs of life, no energy signatures that made sense. Sir? Ensign Paula Green called from the communications station. I'm still trying to establish contact. I've used every language in our database, even the old Earth languages that nobody speaks anymore. Keep trying, Tony ordered. If there's anyone alive on that ship, I want to talk to them before we start shooting. General Webb's voice crackled over the intercom. Captain Hayes, this is command. What's your status? All ships in position, sir. The unknown vessel has stopped moving. It's just sitting there. Any response to our communications? Negative, sir. It's like there's nobody home. Stand by, Captain. Supreme Commander Vexhai is joining us. Tony felt his stomach tighten. The Supreme Commander was not known for his patience. If he was taking personal control of this situation, it meant the High Council was very worried. A new voice came over the intercom, cold, metallic, and full of authority. Captain Hayes, this is Supreme Commander Vexhai. You will destroy the unknown vessel immediately. Sir, we haven't established whether it's hostile. It might be a peaceful explorer or a damaged ship that needs help. I do not care what it is. No vessel with unknown technology will be permitted to approach the capital system. Destroy it now. Tony looked at his crew. They were all good people. They had families, hopes, dreams. They had joined the Imperial fleet to protect the Empire, not to murder innocent travelers. Sir, request permission to attempt communication one more time. Permission denied. You have your orders, Captain. Tony closed his eyes for a moment. He had been a soldier for 15 years. He had followed orders that he didn't like before. But he had never been ordered to attack someone who had done nothing wrong. Sir, the ship hasn't made any hostile moves. It's just sitting there. Captain Hayes, you will carry out your orders or I will find someone who will. Tony looked at Ben. Rodriguez. His tactical officer was watching him carefully. Ben had been in combat before. He knew what it meant to fire on an unknown target. Sir, Ben said quietly, all weapons are ready, but I'm not detecting any shields or weapons on the target. It would be like shooting at a civilian transport. Your orders stand, Supreme Commander Vexhai said over the intercom. Fire on my mark. Tony was about to give the order when Ensign Green suddenly sat up straight at her station. Sir, I'm getting a response from the unknown vessel. What kind of response? It's in perfect galactic standards, sir. They're asking us to identify ourselves. Tony felt a surge of hope. Maybe this could be resolved peacefully after all. Put it on speakers, a voice filled the bridge. It was calm, steady, and completely human. Imperial Fleet, this is Commander Alex Stone. Please identify yourselves and state your intentions. Tony almost fell out of his chair. Commander Stone had spoken in perfect galactic standard, but with an accent that Tony recognized. It was an Earth accent, an American accent like his own. This is Captain Tony Hayes of the Imperial Navy. You have entered restricted space. Please identify your vessel and state your purpose. Captain Hayes, this is the human vessel Destiny. We are returning home after a long journey. We request safe passage to the inner systems. The bridge went completely silent. Tony stared at the communications panel. A human vessel, with technology that made Imperial ships look like toys. It was impossible. Sir, Ben whispered, humans don't have that kind of technology. No one does. Tony activated his private channel to General Webb. General, are you hearing this? I'm hearing it, Captain. But I don't understand it. How can humans have developed such advanced technology without our knowledge? Before Tony could answer, Supreme Commander Vexhai's voice cut through the conversation. I do not care what species they are. They have technology that threatens the Empire. Destroy them now. Tony looked at the main screen. The mysterious ship, the Destiny, was still sitting peacefully in the center of the Imperial formation. Commander Stone had identified himself as human. He was asking for safe passage home. Commander Stone, this is Captain Hayes. We need you to submit to inspection. Your technology is beyond anything we've seen before. Captain Hayes, we have no hostile intentions. We simply wish to return to human space and reunite with our people. Sir, General Webb's voice came over the private channel. The High Council is demanding immediate action. They view this ship as a threat to Imperial authority. Tony closed his eyes. He thought about his family back on Earth, his wife Sarah, his 2 children. They lived under Imperial rule like all humans did. They had no choice in the matter, but now there was a human ship with technology that could change everything. Maybe humans didn't have to live under alien rule anymore. Captain Hayes, Supreme Commander Vexhai's voice was getting colder. You have 10 seconds to comply with orders or I will have you removed from command. Tony looked at his crew. They were all watching him, waiting for his decision. He could follow orders and destroy what might be humanity's best hope for freedom. Or he could refuse and face execution for mutiny. Commander Stone, Tony said into the communicator, you need to understand something. The Empire considers your technology a threat. They're ordering me to destroy your ship. Captain Hayes, we don't want to fight, but we will defend ourselves if necessary. Sir, you have 5 seconds, Supreme Commander Vexhai announced. Tony looked at the tactical display. 50 Imperial ships surrounding one small vessel. It should have been over in seconds, but something told him it wouldn't be that simple. Commander Stone, they're not going to let you go. You need to run. Captain Hayes, we tried to do this peacefully. We came here hoping to find our people free and happy. Instead, we find them serving as slaves to an alien empire. Sir, time is up, Supreme Commander Vexhai said. All ships, open fire. Tony felt his heart sink. He had tried to prevent this, but the decision was out of his hands now. All ships, you have weapons free, target the unknown vessel. The Imperial fleet opened fire. 50 of the most powerful ships in the galaxy unleashed their weapons at the same time. Energy beams that could melt asteroids converged on the small ship in the center of their formation, but something impossible happened. The energy beams passed right through the ship as if it wasn't there. The Destiny sat in the middle of the barrage, completely unharmed. What the hell? Ben Rodriguez stared at his tactical display. Sir, our weapons aren't hitting the target. It's like it's not even there. Commander Stone's voice came over the communicator one last time. Captain Hayes, you seem like a good man. Take your crew and get out of here? What happens next isn't going to be pretty. Tony watched in horror as the small ship began to change. It wasn't just sitting there anymore. It was moving, shifting, becoming something else entirely. All ships withdraw immediately, Tony ordered. Emergency retreat, full speed. But it was too late. The Destiny had become something that defied every law of physics Tony knew. And Commander Stone had kept his word. What happened next wasn't pretty at all. Captain Tony Hayes watched in horror as the small ship began to split apart. But it wasn't breaking. It was dividing itself on purpose. The single vessel became 2, then 4, then 8. Within seconds, there were dozens of smaller ships where the Destiny had been. Sir, what are we looking at? Lieutenant Commander Ben Rodriguez asked. His voice was shaking. Tony stared at the tactical display. Each of the small ships was about the size of a fighter, but they moved like nothing he had ever seen. They twisted and turned through space as if gravity meant nothing to them. All ships, evasive maneuvers, Tony ordered. Prepare for enemy attack. The Imperial fleet began to scatter, but the small ships were already moving. They darted between the massive war vessels like birds flying through a forest. Tony watched one of them approach the dreadnought Thunder. Thunder, you have a bogey. Coming in fast, Tony called over the communication system. We see it, Sovereign, opening fire now. The Thunder's weapons blazed to life. Energy beams and missiles streaked toward the small ship, but the fighter just slipped between the attacks as if it knew where they were going to be before they were fired. Then something impossible happened. The fighter fired back with a single beam of light. The beam hit the Thunder's shields and passed right through them. It struck the massive ship's hull and cut a perfect line from bow to stern. The Thunder broke in half. 2 billion tons of metal and electronics split apart like a piece of wood. The crew never had time to scream. All ships. Scatter, Tony shouted. Emergency jump to hyperspace. But the small ships were everywhere now. They moved faster than anything Tony had ever seen. One of them approached the Sovereign. Tony could see it on the main screen, a sleek black fighter with no visible weapons. Ben, target that fighter, full power. Ben's hands flew over his controls. Sir, I can't get a lock. It's moving too fast. The fighter came closer. Tony could see into its cockpit now. There was a person inside, wearing a flight suit that looked almost like the ones Imperial pilots used. But the helmet was different, more advanced. Sovereign, this is Captain Rose Turner of the Human Liberation Fleet. Power down your weapons and surrender. Tony felt his heart stop. The fighter pilot was human. Not only that, she was a woman. And she was speaking English. This is Captain Hayes. What? Do you want? Captain Hayes, we don't want to hurt you. You're human, like us. But if you keep fighting, we'll have to destroy your ship. Tony looked around his bridge. His crew was staring at him, waiting for orders. These were good people. They had families. Back on Earth, they didn't deserve to die for the Empire's mistakes. Captain Turner, how many humans are with you? Enough, Captain Hayes, more than enough. On the tactical display, Tony could see the battle raging around them. The small human fighters were systematically destroying the Imperial fleet. Ships that had taken years to build were being cut apart in seconds. The battlecruiser Titan tried to ram one of the fighters. The small ship simply moved out of the way at the last second. Then it fired a weapon that made the Titan's hull disappear. Not explode, not melt. Just disappear, as if it had never existed? Sir, Ben said quietly, we've lost 20 ships in the past 5 minutes. The enemy isn't even trying hard. Tony activated his communication system. All Imperial ships, this is Captain Hayes. Cease fire immediately. Power down weapons and prepare to surrender. Captain Hayes, you do not have the authority to surrender the fleet. Supreme Commander Vex's voice crackled over the intercom. With respect, sir, I have the authority to save the lives of my crew. If you surrender, you will be executed. For treason. Tony looked at the main screen. Captain Turner's fighter was still hanging in space near the Sovereign. She could have destroyed them at any time, but she was waiting. Sir, Tony said, the Empire is about to lose this entire fleet. These humans have technology we can't fight. Maybe it's time to consider that we're on the wrong side. Captain Hayes, you are relieved of command. All ships, continue the attack. But the other Imperial captains were watching their ships die. Around them. One by one, they began to power down their weapons. The smart ones launched escape pods. The stubborn ones died with their ships. Captain Turner's voice came over the communication system again. Captain Hayes, you made the right choice. Please evacuate your crew to the escape pods. We're going to disable your ship, but we won't hurt anyone who doesn't fight us. Why are you doing this? Tony asked. Because we're taking our people home. Captain, all of them, including you? Tony gave the order to abandon ship. His crew moved quickly and efficiently to the escape pods. They were well-trained and disciplined. Within minutes, the Sovereign was empty except for Tony and Ben. Sir, you should go, Ben said. I'll stay and make sure the ship is secure. We. Go together, Ben. That's an order. They made their way to the last escape pod. As they strapped themselves in, Tony looked back at the bridge one last time. He had commanded the Sovereign for 3 years. It was a good ship with a good crew. The escape pod launched. Through the small window, Tony could see the battle ending. The few remaining Imperial ships were either surrendering or being destroyed. The human fighters moved through space like dancers, beautiful and deadly. Sir, Ben said, look at that. Tony looked where Ben was pointing. The small human ships were coming back together, forming into larger vessels. The Destiny was rebuilding itself, becoming whole again, but it wasn't the same ship that had started the battle. It was bigger now, sleeker, more powerful. And it wasn't alone. Other ships were appearing from somewhere, ships that looked just as advanced as the Destiny. Captain Hayes, this is Commander Stone. Please respond. Tony activated the pod's communication. System. Commander Stone, this is Captain Hayes. We're in an escape pod about 2 kilometers from the Sovereign. Captain Hayes, we're going to pick you up. Don't be afraid. A ship approached their escape pod. It was one of the human vessels, but it was different from the fighters. This one was designed for rescue operations. It was sleek and fast, but it also looked friendly somehow. The ship's tractor beam grabbed their pod and pulled it inside. Tony and Ben found themselves in a cargo bay that looked like something from a dream. The walls were smooth and white, and there were no visible controls or displays anywhere. A door opened and 2 people walked in. They were human, but they were wearing clothes that Tony had never seen before. The fabric seemed to shift and change, color as they moved. Captain Hayes, I'm Lieutenant Nick Adams. This is Dr. Sam Wilson. Welcome aboard the Hope. Tony stared at the 2 humans. They looked normal, but there was something different about them. They seemed calmer, more confident than any humans Tony had ever met. Where did you come from? Tony asked. That's a long story, Captain. But the short version is that we're the humans who got away. We left Earth before the Empire conquered. We've been out there, learning, growing, becoming something more than we were. And now you're back. Yes, Captain Hayes, now we're back. And we're here to free our people. Tony looked out the window of the cargo bay. The Imperial fleet was gone. In its place was a formation of human ships unlike anything he had ever imagined. They were beautiful and terrible at the same time. What happens now? Tony asked. Dr. Wilson smiled. Now, Captain Hayes, we go to Earth, we go home. Captain Tony Hayes stood in the observation deck of the human ship Hope and watched Earth grow larger in the window. It had been 3 days since the battle, and he still couldn't believe what he was seeing. The planet looked exactly the same as he remembered, but everything else had changed. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" Dr. Sam Wilson said, walking up beside him. "Even after all these years away, there's nothing quite like coming home," Tony nodded. "I never thought I'd see Earth free again. How did you do it?" "That's what Commander Stone wants to explain to everyone. He's asked all the Imperial officers to gather in the main briefing room. Are you ready?" Tony looked out at the planet one more time. Somewhere down there was his wife Sarah and his 2 children. They had been living under alien rule their entire lives. Now, maybe they could be free. "I'm ready," he said, the briefing. Room was unlike anything Tony had ever seen. The walls seemed to be made of light itself, shifting and changing to show images of distant stars and galaxies. About 50 former Imperial officers sat in chairs that adjusted themselves automatically. To fit each person perfectly, Commander Alex Stone walked to the front of the room. He looked like any other human, but Tony could see something different in his eyes. They held knowledge and experiences that went far beyond anything Tony could imagine. "Gentlemen and ladies," Stone began, "I know you have questions. I know this is all hard to believe, so let me start at the beginning." The walls around them changed to show an image of Earth as it was 500 years ago. Cities sparkled with lights, and ships moved between the stars. 500 years ago, humanity was just beginning to explore space. We had colonies on a few nearby worlds, but we were still young, still learning. Then the Zorvek Empire found us. The image changed to show massive alien ships appearing in Earth's sky. Tony had seen pictures of this in history books, but seeing it this way made it feel real. The Empire gave humanity a choice: serve them or be destroyed. Most humans chose to serve, but some of us chose a third option. We chose to run. "Where did you go?" asked Admiral Jake Morrison. He had been rescued from Station Omega 7 after the battle. "We went to the edge of the galaxy," Stone replied. "To a place where even the Empire didn't dare to travel, the void between stars." The walls showed images of empty space, darker than anything Tony had ever seen. It was a place where stars died and light itself seemed to fade away. In the void, we found something the Empire had forgotten about. Something they thought was just a legend. We found a precursor facility. Tony felt his breath catch. The precursors were the ancient race that had ruled the galaxy millions of years ago. They had technology that made the Empire's ships look like toys. The facility was damaged, abandoned for millions of years, but it was still working. And it was waiting for someone worthy to find it. The walls showed images of a massive structure floating in the darkness. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time, like a crystal palace made of starlight. "The precursors left behind more than just technology," Stone continued. "They left behind knowledge. The secrets of space and time itself, how to manipulate matter at the quantum level, how to move between dimensions, how to become more than we ever dreamed possible." "How long have you been out there?" Dr. Kate Phillips asked. She had joined them from the research station at Nexus Point. 200 years, Stone replied. "We spent the first century just learning to understand the precursor technology, the second century learning to use it, and the past 50 years preparing to come home." Tony raised his hand. "Commander, why didn't you come back sooner? Why wait so long?" Stone's expression grew sad. "Because we weren't ready. The technology we found was dangerous. In the wrong hands, it could destroy not just the Empire, but the entire galaxy. We had to learn wisdom along with power." The walls showed images of the human fleet that now surrounded Earth. Hundreds of ships, each one more advanced than anything the Empire had ever built. "We also had to grow as a people," Stone continued. "The humans who left Earth 500 years ago were angry, frightened refugees. We had to become something better, something worthy of the power we had found." "Lieutenant." Commander Ben Rodriguez stood up. "Sir, what about the Empire? What happens to the Zorvak now?" The Empire is finished, Stone said simply. Not just defeated, but obsolete. Their technology, their way of thinking, their entire civilization is based on ideas that are thousands of years out of date. Are you going to kill them all? Someone asked from the back of the room. Stone shook his head. No, we're not conquerors, we're liberators. The Zorvak can return to their homeworlds and live in peace. But they will never again rule over other species. General Marcus Webb raised his hand. Commander, what about us? What about the humans who served in the Imperial fleet? You have a choice, Stone replied. You can return to your families and live quiet lives on Earth, or you can join us and help spread freedom throughout the galaxy. There are millions of worlds still under Imperial control. Billions of people who have never known freedom. The walls showed images of alien worlds, some beautiful, some strange, all of them populated by creatures who had lived under Imperial rule for generations. The technology we've mastered allows us to do things that seem impossible, Stone continued. We can travel faster than light without leaving any trace. We can manipulate matter and energy in ways that defy conventional physics. We can even move between different dimensions of space. Is that how you defeated the Imperial fleet so easily? Tony asked. Yes, our ships don't just move through space. They move through multiple dimensions simultaneously. That's why your weapons couldn't hit us. We were never entirely in the same dimension as your ships. Tony felt his mind struggling to understand. It was like trying to picture a color that didn't exist. But the most important thing we learned, Stone said, was not how to use the technology, but when to use it. Power without wisdom is just destruction. The precursors learned that lesson too late. They destroyed themselves with their own creations. Dr. Phillips leaned forward in her chair. Commander, are you saying that humanity is now the most advanced species in the galaxy? I'm saying that humanity has the potential to become something greater than any species that came before us. But only if we choose wisdom over power, freedom over control, cooperation over domination. The walls around them changed to show images of Earth cities. But these weren't the cities Tony remembered. These were new cities, beautiful and clean, with buildings that seemed to grow from the ground like living things. We've already begun the work, Stone explained. While we were fighting the Imperial fleet, other human ships were removing the Zorvak administrators from Earth. The planet is free and reconstruction has already begun? Tony felt tears running down his face. His children would grow up free. They would never have to bow to alien masters or follow orders from creatures who saw humans as nothing more than useful tools. What happens now? Admiral Morrison asked Stone. Smiled. Now we go home. All of us, and then we begin the real work. Building a galaxy where every species can live free, where knowledge is shared instead of hoarded, where power is used to protect instead of to control. The meeting ended, and the officers began to file out. Tony stayed behind, still staring at the images of the new Earth on the walls. Captain Hayes, Stone said, walking over to him. You made the right choice during the battle. You saved a lot of lives. Commander, I have to ask. How do I know this isn't just another form of conquest? How do I know you're not just replacing one empire with another? Stone nodded. That's a good question, Captain. And the answer is simple. We're giving the technology away to everyone. Humans, aliens, anyone who wants to learn. An empire can only exist when one group has power that others don't. We're making sure that never happens again. Tony looked out the window at Earth one more time. The planet was free, and humanity had become something greater than he had ever imagined. The galaxy would never be the same. And for the first time in his life, Tony Hayes believed that the future was going to be better than the past.